Welcome to the Pretty Deadly podcast. My name is Susie Kahlich. I'm the founder of Pretty Deadly Self-Defense, a self-defense program I developed based on my experience as a violent crime survivor and my 25 years training in the Japanese art of ninjutsu. Welcome back to the Pretty Deadly podcast. I want to share a training secret that serious martial artists do and elite athletes do, but nobody ever talks about in self-defense classes. The secret is you look for opportunities to train in every moment of your life. What do I mean by that? I don't mean that I've got 5 minutes, I'm going to drop and do 10 push-ups. It means that you're looking for the movements of the techniques that you're doing in your daily activities. So for example, when I'm walking out of a store that doesn't have automatic doors, when I'm pushing open that door, I'm actually working on fudoken, a straight punch. When I am coming home with my hands full of groceries and I need to open my front door, I kick open the door with my foot and I'm working on my front kick. So when I'm on the subway, I often won't hang on to anything if it's not too rattly so that I can work on my balance and the flexibility of my joints. When I'm getting off the floor, I am using a get-up technique that is the same technique we use to come out of a forward roll, etc., etc. I think you get what I mean. So the way that elite athletes get to be so good and the way serious martial artists get to be so good is that they are always training. Everything is a training opportunity. The problem is in martial arts is that it is such a male-dominated industry that when teachers use daily movements to explain a technique, they are coming at it from a very male experience and male perspective. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but sometimes that can be difficult for female students to really relate to. My teacher did this all the time. He would often explain a technique with something like, oh, this is just tightening the lug nut on your hubcap when you're changing a tire on your car. But for me, that looks like handing somebody some cash so they can change the tire for me. That's not because I'm a diva or because I'm a princess. It's because I don't know how to change a tire and I don't really want to spend the time learning how to change a tire because I am focused on learning other skills and perfecting those skills instead. There are people who love changing tires. There are people who do it for a living. That's why we pay them. The point is that for me, when my teacher was giving those kinds of examples, I would have to find something in my life that worked as opposed to the examples he was giving. And that's actually the premise that Pretty Deadly is based on. If you have been listening to this podcast for a while, then you might know the story that I originally created the Pretty Deadly format for my mom. I needed to find movements she did every single day that could be easily translated into self-defense movements so that she wouldn't say oh, I'm not going to train these, I'm going to forget them, I don't know how to do it. She already knew how to do it. She was already really good at it. We just needed to tweak the structure a little bit and apply it to a self-defense situation to give her the confidence to continue learning and to know that she could trust the moves. So that fudoken that I mentioned, a straight punch, I practice that when I'm pushing open doors. But my mother practiced that by giving a cup of coffee, and that's how we teach it in Pretty Deadly. So that being said, I want to look at some more movements that women specifically do, but actually some of these things everybody should do in your daily lives. And what I mean by that isn't that everybody should learn self-defense. I mean that everybody should clean their house. Maybe you don't have a dirty house, but that's probably because you clean it. And granted, you may hire a housekeeper or a house cleaner in the same way that I hire a mechanic to change my tires. That's cool, but you probably do know how to do a couple of basic things like wash dishes. So I'm going to start a whole series just focused on movements that you're already doing around your house, just in cleaning, and how you can practice self-defense techniques while you're doing that. I don't know about you guys, but when I actually really like to clean. So when I clean, I have a whole strategy. I tend to follow a certain pattern because I don't know, that's just what works for me. And I usually start in the kitchen, especially if I'm going to do a big top to bottom house cleaning. So that's where we're going to start. We're going to start in the kitchen and we're going to start at the sink washing dishes. And I know that you may have a dishwasher, but you probably also wash some dishes by hand. And we're going to look at self-defense techniques that can come out of familiar movements in both of those scenarios. Let's start with standing in front of the sink, washing dishes. I'm going to start with flatware and dishes that you have to scrub, that when you're you've got something caked onto a plate or you've got, I don't know, like egg yolk stuck on a fork and you're scrubbing back and forth really, really hard. So that back and forth movement with your hand, almost like in a claw, is a really great self-defense technique that you can use when somebody is grabbing you or placing a hand on you that you don't want. When we use our nails on someone else's skin, especially the back of somebody else's hand or on the side of somebody's face, and we move them in a horizontal fashion as opposed to back and forth like we're scratching an itch, that feels like being cut. It might feel like being cut with a paper cut instead of a knife, and that's all fine and well. We don't always want to, we don't want to hurt people, but it's still a really shocking feeling and it will disrupt whatever somebody is doing. So that scrubbing back and forth is a great way to practice getting somebody's hand off your shoulder if you've got a creepy boss at work, for example, or scratching across somebody's face. You may, though, be washing pans. So usually when we're washing pots and pans, we tend to scrub in a circular motion, whether the circle is away from us in a clockwise direction or towards us in a counterclockwise direction. If we've got the pan sitting on the bottom or pot sitting on the bottom of a sink, so that we can hold it still with one hand. With the other hand, we are scrubbing in a circular motion. This is a great way to train elbow techniques. So if you make even bigger motions, then you're moving your whole entire elbow. You're either moving it out away from you, which would strike someone behind you, or you're moving it in towards you, which will strike someone in front of you. So these are great ways to practice elbow strikes. Moving on to glassware. So I don't know about you, but when I'm washing glasses, whether it's with a scrub brush or a sponge, we usually stick it in the glass and then we move around in a circular motion, usually with our wrists, right? One hand holds the glass still, the other hand moves in a circular motion. Again, whether it's towards you or away from you, it really doesn't matter what your preference is because either one of these is a really great wrist lock. If someone stands in front of me and they grab my wrist, maybe with both hands or maybe with one hand, and I turn my hand towards them at the wrist. So I'm going to bring my fingers together and I'm going to turn my hand towards them and point down to their belly button. This is a really good wrist lock. If I want to get out of that wrist lock in a different way, I'm going to turn my wrist towards me while at the same time taking a step forward in an elbow strike. When we're done washing the dishes, we usually squeeze out the sponge, we might wash down the sink, we finish everything, and then we shake the water from our hands. Now, if we're shaking the water kind of lightly, we might do a few light shakes. But oftentimes when we need to get water off of our hands in a hurry because we hear a loud crash in the other room or someone's at the door or whatever it is, we give our hands one full kind of serious shake. When we do this, we make a light fist with our hands and then we open our fingers as we shake out. This is a really powerful strike. This strike is what we call in Pretty Deadly shake the water, and it's one of the ways that we get out of a two-handed choke. What you can do to practice it if you want to pantomime it is pretend that you're washing dishes, shake the water off once. If you want to practice this on a pillow so you can see how strong this strike is, just use one hand on the pillow because it can be hard to hit both. I'm going to use my hand as an example. You're going to start with a closed fist and just shake the water. A really, really great way to practice this particular strike. Let's move on to putting dishes in the dishwasher. We've hand washed all the fine china and wooden cooking utensils that cannot go in the dishwasher, and now we're ready to put the rest of the stuff in the dishwasher. Let's talk about putting our utensils into the utensil basket. Every single dishwasher has one, and it's a really, really great time to practice shuriken or throwing stars if you really want to go crazy. I mean, do this at your own risk. That's what I'm going to say because I don't want to be responsible for breaking your dishwasher or your dishes. But if you've got fairly decent aim, you're going to take a fork or a knife or a spoon or whatever it is, hold it between your first and second finger and your thumb, and you're kind of going to throw it like a dart into that basket. It's a flick of the wrist, but it's a really great way to practice a throw. If you're not ready for throwing stars, putting things in the dishwasher is a good time to practice the difference between bending at the waist and bending at your knees. So if you've ever loaded up a dishwasher after a party or whatever, and you've just had like a zillion tons of dishes and a hangover, and you're bending down at the waist, your headache is going to get a lot worse. And if you're a little older and overweight like I am, you're also going to hurt your lower back. To put dishes in the dishwasher, especially when you've got a ton, use your knees to bend down to get closer to the level of the dishwasher rack and insert the dishes. Again, this is just a really good way to practice bending at the knees instead of at the waist. All right, so your cycle of dishes is done, everything is dry, and you're ready to put things away. Putting the dishes away, if you are putting your dishes into an overhead cupboard or an overhead shelf, this is a fantastic time to think about a strike to the face. Your movement of putting dishes on a shelf, especially the ones that are easy to reach, is a very naturally powerful movement. And you know this if you've ever sort of not really been paying attention and you accidentally whack the shelf with your hand, or worse, you accidentally break a dish. Every single time you're putting that plate onto the shelf, think about hitting someone's face with the palm of your hand. You don't need to think about aiming for the chin or aiming for the nose. It doesn't really matter where you're going to hit them. But usually, because of our natural reach, you're going to hit someone at the chin. That's step number one, and that's something you can look up on YouTube all over the place, hitting somebody in the face with the palm of your hand. But the thing we're going to add to it, and what you're doing when you're putting dishes and bowls and cups away, is you're actually pointing your fingers forward. So we put that plate up and then we continue the movement with our wrists. Try it if you're listening to me and you're at home and you're actually putting dishes away. Your wrist bends a little bit forward to slide that cup, plate, or bowl into place. When we apply that same movement to somebody's face, that strike to the chin knocks them back, and that forward bend of the wrist that your fingers are leading as you put the plate into place is actually on someone's face, is actually going to send them to the ground. The problem with a strike just to the face and nothing following up is it may knock someone off balance, but they may regain it quickly and be able to come back. Adding this one little movement of bending your wrist forward, that's going to knock someone on the ground. The other thing I want you to pay attention to when you're putting plates away is the position of the rest of your body. We don't do this just with our arms. When we're putting plates, bowls, glasses, whatever it is away in our daily lives, it's a full body movement. I'm right-handed. If I'm going to put a plate away with my right hand, I don't step forward with my left foot. I'm stepping forward with my right foot. The reason that I'm doing that when I'm putting dishes away is because it closes a distance much more effectively than if I'm using the opposite leg. So it's always same arm, same leg. This is the same way we want to practice this strike to the face. Right? We're using the same arm, same leg, and our entire body is behind this movement. These are small ways that you can practice self-defense every single day, if you do dishes every day, but looking for movements that you already do in your daily life, tweaking them a little bit and applying them to self-defense situations. You don't need to take classes forever. You don't need to train for 20 years. You don't need to even have refresher classes, as long as you know that your movements that you're practicing when you're moving in a mindful manner, that these are also self-defense tools. In the next episode, we're going to continue with the kitchen, cleaning off counters and sweeping floors, maybe even taking out the trash. If you're listening to this on Spotify or iTunes or Audible or wherever it is you listen to this podcast, go to our YouTube channel at Pretty Deadly Self-Defense on YouTube, and you'll see some videos tagged within this podcast episode so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about and train it yourself. You can access all Pretty Deadly episodes on Spotify, iTunes, Audible, and everywhere you get your favorite pods. Our theme music is the track Icarus Wish by the Burning band Dead Centuries, used with permission of the artists. To learn more about Pretty Deadly Self-Defense, who we are, what we do, and how to find Pretty Deadly near you, visit our website at prettydeadlyselfdefense.com.